Welcome to season 2 of Fractional CMOs and the 90-day win. I'm Dean Way. This season, we're going to talk through scenarios that companies and these CMOs experience to share lessons and tips on how to get the most out of a fractional CMO that you've hired. So, hi, Michael. Just going to say hi real quick. Okay. So, Michael, the premise of the entire podcast is a hypothetical 1-year engagement for a fractional CMO. Okay. And we're going to talk about the first 90 days. And so what problem do you, with your clients, what problem do you normally see?
Yep.
Or what problem do you just go looking for? Because you know it's going to be there.
Yep.
Starting on day one in that first 90-day period. And as a add on to that, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Michael Becker. I am a soon-to-be author, book launching end of March called Content Capitalist. I'm a 10-year technology/software marketing veteran. Most of the companies that I've served have been larger, more matrixed enterprises that have operations across the globe. I've also served several startups in my career as well. So kind of have come from those two perspectives. And yeah, Dean, to just go right into the question, the number one thing that I tend to see is just a lot of legacy-minded thinking and processes, as especially a company gets larger and larger. And I think the kind of the unique perspective and the flavor that I try to bring wherever I am is that of this younger generation. I'm a millennial, and the way that millennial professionals and workers, but also customers, prefer to interact with the companies that they do business with or even work for is very different from, I think, anything that we've seen in the past. And the same could be said for Gen Z. This younger, I call them the tech intertwined generation. And so, it starts and it ends with content, and content underlies every single stage, every touch point for your users. And so how can we be modern? How can we be interesting? And how can we be engaging using content to build the entire business? And that's where I typically start.
Oh, by the way, I was I told myself last week that I would never bring this up on a podcast unless someone said the word millennial. And then very first, here you are. I was talking to a Gen Zer last week. Have you heard of the millennial pause?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was hilarious. That the Gen Zers think that the millennials are like kind of old and out of it. And whenever they'll tell you, like on TikTok, whenever a millennial, like whenever a video is made by a millennial has been uploaded, there's like a 1-second pause before they start talking. And they've actually given it a name now. So like even millennials are old to the Gen Z folks.
That's true. Very true.
Okay. Hey, Jessica. Hi. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Okay. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what problem do you normally either see or get smacked in the face with or just go hunting for because you know you're going to have to deal with it eventually when you start with a new client.
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Jessica Shirra, and I'm the founder of Fractional CMO School, and I'm also a fractional CMO myself with 15 years experience in marketing. So I mainly work with direct-to-consumer clients that are doing 1 million a year or more. And most of my clients either have memberships, courses, or an e-commerce style business.
Right.
Before that, I worked with global brands like Lululemon, Pottery Barn, and then Jenna Kutcher was actually one of my early fractional CMO clients. And we got the opportunity to do one of her biggest launches ever. And her and her team are just really great to work with.
So what problem do you go looking for?
Yeah, as far as like where I start with people, I would say the biggest problem that I see is a lack of data and tracking and analytics. And often I come into a new client and they're not usually using data to inform their decision-making or their strategy. And they're also not using data to iterate as they go and learn and, be making things better. So that's one of the first problems that I see and one of the first things that we tackle when I'm working with clients.
Okay, fair enough. So let's talk about that then, especially around like the data and the analytics side. Like the most common answer I used to get in season 1 when I said, what's the most important factor for a CEO to get maximum value out of a fractional CMO was information sharing. In fact, it was so universal I stopped asking it. So instead, what I say is, besides sharing the information with you, how would you recommend that a CEO get maximum value, Jessica, out of a fractional CMO? They got you for a year. How do they squeeze every last penny of value out of you?
I think getting out of my way. I've had some clients hire me and then like really have a lot of hesitancy around handing the reins over with marketing, and they just can't they can't hand the strategy over, they can't hand the team over, and they're really to Michael's point, like they're stuck in like, this is how we used to do things and this is what we typically do. And sometimes if you're coming in with fresh eyes and you have these ideas, there's just this resistance and not a lot of trust. So I would say those types of clients are kind of a nightmare client, or like my non-ideal client. The clients that see the most success when working with me is when they're really full of trust and they're like, here's the team, here's everything, like go. And they can really trust and hand over the reins.
And Michael, what do you think? How does a CEO squeeze every last bit of value out of their 1 year fractional CMO?
Yeah, I mean, to go off what Jess was sharing, that's 100% right. I would say also, like, the reason you bring in a fractional anything into your business is to inject a new flavor of thinking and a new way of doing things. And so you don't necessarily have to implement every single thing that that person brings to the table. But remember, the reason you're bringing them in is because they're a subject matter expert in typically growing companies quick, or at least in a marketing capacity, like spurring that lead generation machine. And so get out of their way, and if you're not willing to do that, then maybe it's not the right fit for you right now. Maybe there's some things you need to iron out on the back end, getting your systems in place, for example. Like, every business is different, but if you're really looking to change things up, in order to jumpstart things, you have to sometimes be willing to take bold and decisive action on new ideas.
Right. All right. Let's talk about moving into an organization, right? So a friend comes to you and say, hey, I just got my first ever fractional CMO engagement. I got my first gig.
Yep.
I'm going to start with this new client. Everything seems good. They already have a marketing team in place, mostly like junior and mid people, right? Mid-level people. Yep. So mid took on a whole different meaning as an adjective lately. So I don't want to say that the people are mid. They're mid-level, right? Junior and mid. What advice do you give, or what sort of lessons do you pass along to that new fractional CMO about moving into a client where there's already marketing people in place?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
I would say 3 things, right? So number 1 is, embed yourself in the business as much as you can. For me, what that looks like is doing as many informational interviews with stakeholders and leaders in the company as I can line up. These can be quick 15 to 30-minute chats, but you just want to get a sense for the perspective of the people that have been there for longer than you have, so that you're coming in as warm as possible. Because there are a lot of existing ideas and ways of doing things, and the better informed you can be about those, the better job you're going to do. So that's one. Number 2 is I'm always doing some sort of a quick audit, typically a content audit. I'm looking at what they have on their blog, their social media channels, their website, anything beyond 1 or 2 years in terms of its age, I'm probably going to be looking to do something with, whether to discard or repurpose. And then 3 would just be presenting ideas based on what you find there, so that you're not coming out of the blue with stuff that that they're not even going to be looking to be open to.
Right. And sort of hurt your credibility right from the jump. Right. Yeah. And Jessica, what do you think? What lessons would you pass along to a new fractional CMO friend who's walking into a company and there's already marketing people, like a team in place?
I would say I have a similar process. I start with an audit and a strategy right up front. So I think it's really important to come in and get a very, very comprehensive idea of what's been done in the past, where does the company want to go, who is the target audience, what's working, what's not working, and really making sure that you're understanding things before you're coming in with a whole bunch of recommendations. So I think that's really important. And then I also try to spend a lot of time getting to know the team, especially if they're going to be my direct reports, and understanding what do they love about their role? What do they not love? I really try to get a sense of their goals within work. So, what is their 1-year vision, 3-year vision, 5-year vision? Like, how can I, in some way of working together, how can I set them up to achieve some of those goals and make sure that I am showing that I care about them as a human beyond like just being somebody to get things done for me.
All right. So let's flip that around then. You're one of those employees working at the company. A fractional CMO has just been hired. Like, what changes can you expect to see in your job now that a fractional CMO has been brought in? Jessica.
That's a big question. I think it really depends on the role. But just at a really high level, I would say better processes around like how do we plan strategically ahead and in advance? How are we, how much ahead are we working versus like that really last minute scramble? How much does my manager like care about me and my goals and development and learning the things I want to learn within marketing? And then potentially, if someone's just in like the actual wrong seat, like they're doing work that they don't love or they're doing work that they're not great at,
Right.
I sometimes would see like big shifts to people's roles and like what their day-to-day looks like.
And Michael, what do you think? As an employee, like, should I be concerned? Is there something I should keep an eye on? Is there something I could like? Is there an opportunity here that maybe some of my colleagues are not seeing, but I have an opportunity career-wise when a fractional CMO comes in?
I mean, so I'll say this. I've never been an employee at a company when a fractional has come in. If I were, I would imagine I would be a little bit confused and maybe
Yeah.
even concerned about why and how that would impact me. That's not something that you have typically seen a lot of over the last decade. This is a fairly new thing.
Yep.
And so I think it really does depend on the company, to Jess's point. Also, the orientation of the fractional. Somebody like me, I mean, I'm younger. I'm going to look to be more hands-on and tactical. Like I said, initiating communication with the team as early and ideally as often as possible, so that they can get a sense for who I am and the change that I hope to bring. But if the fractional is more experienced, 20 plus years in the industry, maybe they're more of a thought leader type where they're just going to kind of evangelize the brand in the marketplace, do their speaking, do their writing projects as normal, and just kind of put the company on their back. So there's a couple different ways to look at it.
So basically a manager versus a like high level strategy kind of person.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And then, okay, so I have one more question. Okay, Michael, we'll start with you first. I get pushback on this question, but I love this question and I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you think the best fractional engagements are marathons or sprints? Like, do you go in, is your preference to go in and know there's kind of an end date or a goal or a metric to hit? And like, you're going to go right till you get it? Or is it more of a, like, you show up and like, it's going to be, slow and steady wins the race. It's a long race and you get to like maybe a finish line, but it's so far away that it almost shouldn't be there. What's your preferred way?
I think a good fractional is adaptive to where the company is at in terms of their growth stage. Like if it's a startup or a scale up and they're blitz scaling the market, then you need to be as quick as what the founders or the owners are wanting to be. But like I said before, if you're coming into a large enterprise matrixed company, that's 1 or 2 decades plus years old, and they're just looking to change some things up, maybe take a new market, alter their messaging or their go-to-market, well, then they're playing on a longer term timetable. So it's not going to be as pressing in terms of what you're going to do or be expected to do. Maybe they're just bringing you in to do a marketing assessment or to refine how they go to market. So again, it really depends. I don't know that I have a preference.
You don't have a preference of sprint versus marathon?
Mm-mm.
No. So Jessica, do you have a preference?
I definitely do. I think marathon because
yeah.
I explain to my clients that like marketing, a marketing, whoever you hire, is not a quick fix, and it's not like money in, money out. It's not just this like turning on a tap and suddenly your company's making millions.
Exactly.
And I always try to explain to them, like, it's not that easy. If it was, everybody would be millionaires. And that I really view marketing as a science, and it's all about like, okay, we're going to gather all of the information that we know and put a strategy together. And within that strategy are some hypotheses based on, what we know and the information we've gathered. We're trying to, pull those together based on our best educated guess. But at the end of the day, they are guesses. We're going out and saying, okay, we think that this is the best path forward based on my experience, based on what the data is telling us, based on the market, but we're going to try this because there's all of these other ingredients that are anomalies, like the brand, actually the brand positioning, the product, all of the pieces. So
Sure.
we try these things, we see, did it work the way we thought it did? If yes, do more of that. If no, like, let's dig into the data and see what actually went wrong and where we could improve for next time. So I like to position the fractional CMO position and marketing in general as something that is like long-term and ongoing, and something you always want to be iterating and improving on.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so Jessica, who should be reaching out to contact you, and how should they do it?
If you are a 7-figure brand who has memberships, courses, masterminds, high ticket offerings, or e-commerce products, we have strategy packages and ongoing like advisory and fractional CMO services. So you can find me on Instagram at Marketing by Jess, or my website, jessicashirra.com. Or if you're a marketer who's looking to either start or grow your fractional CMO business, I have a program called Fractional CMO School, where I'm training literally everything, how I started my business and grew it to 6 figures in 6 months. And I'm not leaving anything unturned. Like, everything, all of the behind the scenes process of my business is in this program.
All right, and Michael, who should be reaching out to you, and how should they do it?
Yeah, so I'm just a one-man business. Unlike Jess, don't have an agency or a large company. It's just me. So I'm typically very hands-on in terms of interactions. I've served solopreneurs, who just want to build their personal brand on Instagram to, 5 figures or 6 figures a month, which is not an easy thing to do. Like,
Right.
let's not get it twisted. This is going to take a ton of work and time. All the way to SMBs, like I said, new startups, and several enterprises as well. So open to help however it makes sense. If you feel aligned, check out my website, michaelbecker.org. You can see my different service offerings there.
All right, and I'm Dean, like always, winstonwrites.com. And thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Michael. Any last words do you want to put out to the world before I click off the or keep recording button?
Thanks for having me. Appreciate
You're
it.
very welcome.
And I'll just end with, I've got my book, Content Capitalist, dropping end of March. So also check that out on my website.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, folks. Thanks, everyone. See you next.